Welcome to Whatif Tutorials. In this tutorial I will be discussing the quote layout of a pre-printed form. By that I mean a quote form which has on it your company logo and other information or whatever is on there, columns, headings, whatever, and now you want to add your data for a particular quote to that form. So this involves loading the form into your printer and printing to that form. We'll be looking at the layout edit options. We'll be looking at the header section, the body section and the total section. Let's have a look at the form itself. Here I've got a pre-printed form starting with a blank form. So rather than show you what it would look like with your own form, you have to imagine that there is a form here. All of this data and text that you see here has been generated by Whatif onto plain paper, but imagine, if you will, that it would be generated onto your form. So some of the information that has been put onto this form would not be necessary because it would already be on your form. The first section is the header section up here where you have your quote number, date, customer reference, bill address, delivery address, preamble, excuse me. And down below that we have the body section with your items in there, and then below that we have the footer and total sections. So I'll be going through these with you. Okay, let's now go from the product quotes main menu into layouts, pre-printed quotes. When you open this up, you will open up your user-defined quotes, layouts I should say. You can create a new design by copying an existing one. We won't do that. There are four basic types or four basic layouts already here. One for where you have no totals, where you would have alternate options within the body of the quote. Another one is a traditional quote where you do have a total. And for each of those you have either with GST or without GST, so there's four. Okay, what you're seeing here is the code, the type, whether it's GST, total or not, little text about what it does. You have a bottom margin, a left margin, page length, and here the position where your header starts. We'll look at these in detail here. Okay, here we have the description of, or the code. You can put any code you want or change this code. This is one where we have totals, but if there was not totals we would have no. The prices include GST, and this is the description. Here we have the margins and spacing. These are expressed as characters. The bottom margin, or I should say the bottom margin is in lines from the bottom. The left margin is in characters from the left. Page length is in lines. Now the heading start is where a heading starts to the left or to the right of the left margin. So it's 19 characters to the right of the left margin. So this is where it starts printing your heading. Similarly, comments would be underneath that, so it has 19 characters. This comments box width is 50 characters or whatever you want, so that determines how far across your comments go on the page, starting at 19 and then going across 50. Likewise with the long description and the dimensions, the starting point and then the width. So the actual extension of the items description would also be in line with these 19, 19, 19. Whoops, but that's covered later. Over here we're talking about column headings. In the body section, you may already have column headings in there. So this question here is yes or no. Do you want to print them? The heading dividing lines, if you want to print your column headings, you might have a line above and a line below, or none at all, or one or the other. These are simply dividing lines. Dividing lines width, this is the number of characters, wide and the right margin. Default fonts, you can put pretty well any font you like onto any section of the quote you like. You might have one font for the whole quote. Some may be bolded and some may be not bolded. So header labels refer to the labels like quote, and then header data might be the actual quote number, so that's bolded, but the data is not. Header data is, it is. Okay. Okay, so these are the fonts you can select for whatever you want. Now down here we have maximum characters per description and maximum lines per page. These determine how the system creates or estimates the number of pages a quote will take. So you can sort this out by trial and error. Quote preamble is the preamble to the quote that you can have, usually about 3 lines or 2 lines, and you can have anything you like there. And at the end of the quote you can say print end of quote or yes or no. So those are the edit options. Now the actual structure of the printed quote, as I mentioned earlier, is divided into the header section, the body, and then the total section. So let's just go through a couple of those. Let's look at the headers section first of all. Now the way this works is that the information that you are printing is on a particular line, and then on that line, for example here on line 2, you may have 2 sequences. The first sequence will be the first thing that appears to the left, and then the next sequence will be the next thing that appears to the right of that first sequence. So in this case the word quote appears 2 characters in from the margin, and then the actual quote itself, the data, the actual quote field, appears 12 characters in. So that lines the label up with the data. So we have line numbers and we have sequences within those line numbers. So if there's more than one thing on a line, you have to have more than one sequence for that line and put them in the positions they should be in. If you want to change one of these things, you just click on the green area and edit. You can change in this case, because it's text, you can change the text. You can change its position, the number of characters to the right or the left margin. Okay, and you can change the sequence or the line number for that matter. But if you do that, of course, it will change where these items appear on the quote. So that's how items are actually placed on the quote. These spaces here mean that from the top of the page, this area is not printed on, probably because it's already got pre-printed form stuff on there, like your company name, your company address, and other details that are printed on the form or pre-printed on the form. And the first thing you start to print is after those things down further. Okay, let's close that. That was the header. You may have a follow-up header. If there's the first header might appear on the first page, you can have a different follow-up header on the next page. Generally speaking, you would select possibly, or maybe not, to repeat the first header. If not, then you can change this to what you might require. Next thing you want to look at is the body. The body is the actual items, description, quantity, the columns we referred to earlier. These are set up one after the other by adding a field. You can then select the field that you want. You say use that, and then you tell it the position you want it to be in. And you go OK. Now this is what we've just added as an example doesn't make much sense, because its position at the moment is 5, and of course it would have to be, or generally would be, to the right of the last one here. So in order to fix that, you can edit it again, or you can say click positions, and the system will create the positions, suggested positions for you. I'll just delete that one now. Okay, so that's the body. Next is the footer and the total. The footer is what appears at the foot of the first page, and then after that, when you get to the final page, you will go to the total section. Both of these are set up in exactly the same way as described for the header, so I don't need to go through that with you again. So that is pretty much, without going into a lot of detail, how you design the pre-printed quote forms. And that ends this tutorial.